in the grand scheme of things, does the distribution matter at all?
Oh, you are jumping right into some of the longest battles.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Oh, my God. I am going to get mail after. I'm going to get pings after. Somebody on the Discord is going to come for me.
This is Compiler, an original podcast from Red Hat. I'm your host, Emily Bach, a senior product manager at Red Hat.
And I'm Jennifer Scalf, senior manager of a team of technical account managers at Red Hat.
On this show, we go beyond the buzzwords and jargon and simplify tech topics. This season, we're covering the fundamentals of IT infrastructure.
And in this episode, we dive right into operating system management.
IT infrastructure is what makes our digital lives possible. Operating systems, networks, virtual machines, containers, and automation are a few of the components that let developers build applications and deliver them to your devices. In this season of Compiler, we're giving these pillars of the digital world the love and attention they deserve. We'll talk a bit about what they are and share some advice on how to handle them and set everyone up for success. And to help us out, we're joined by the terrific Jennifer Scalf, friend of the pod and a genuine expert in the foundations that keep the tech industry humming.
Thank you. I can't wait to go into a bit more detail. I have about 27 years now of experience keeping all kinds of systems running. At old past jobs, I was a system administrator where we literally took the machines out of the boxes, put them in the rack, put the wires in, put the cables in, set up the switches and the routers. We installed the operating systems, the databases, all the way up through applications that folks were using every day for all kinds of intense, powerful services such as cancer research. After I left being a system administrator for about 9 years at Red Hat, I was then helping folks do that for 6 years as a technical account manager on the platform side across financial services, retail, telco. And now I've moved into being a manager of a large team of technical account managers doing exactly that, keeping the infrastructure up and running and updated and letting them know about the latest technology that would affect them, make their lives easier, make their businesses run smoother, hit their business objectives. I'm so excited to be involved in this podcast series. I'm so excited that I can help show people that it's not just about putting the pieces together and having your infrastructure. It's also about taking pride in what their users are then doing with that infrastructure.
That is awesome. Yeah, that infrastructure is the foundation that you build everything else on. It sounds like, you're kind of the infrastructure equivalent of a full stack plus kind of expert.
Exactly. And I did want to say really quick, we all the time talk about what folks are doing with services, with products, with infrastructure, with architecture. But my focus has always been, for some reason, I'm this person that's obsessed with how you build it in the first place. And my team is obsessed with how you build it in the first place.
That's really cool. I feel like it's like building a race car and like everybody talks about how fast it goes, but like you can really geek out about how you made it do that.
Yeah, back in the day, about 20 some years ago, we used to say it was like building a plane and you would just stick all the pieces on. And RHEL, for those that don't know, that's Red Hat Enterprise Linux, was sort of, we've already built the plane. You can just take that plane and just take off with it, right?
No, that makes perfect sense. And actually that's a perfect segue because we're going to kick off our season on infrastructure by diving into operating system management specifically. So we spoke with Scott McBrien, a technical product marketing manager here at Red Hat. You may remember him from such films as the Red Hat Enterprise Linux field guides, and he's big on getting the details right.
So I think operating system is one of those things that people kind of think they know what it is, but don't necessarily entirely know what it is. So for Linux distributions, the operating system is Linux, but as a distribution manufacturer, we then pick literally thousands of additional pieces of software to complete the distribution, right? So it's not just Linux, which operates the hardware and does process scheduling and handles CPU load and memory allocation, but it's also the web browser, the graphical desktop environment, the Wayland X compositor, PHP of various flavors, Python. Like, we choose all of the different components that come together into a Linux distribution.
Yeah, so like back to our race car situation, it might be the engine, but there's a whole lot more to the car there as well. So we're going to break that down a little bit and cover a couple of things here. So in an enterprise setting, you're much more likely to run into Linux than Windows or Mac OS or anything else these days. Why is that?
I think traditionally, if you go back to when I started again, years and years and years ago, it was so customizable. It didn't matter which distribution that you were picking at the time necessarily, because folks were doing that sort of putting on whatever wheels they want, putting on the engine, putting in, okay, I'm getting to the end of my car analogies, but that's okay, right?
I don't know why I started that way. I know very little about them.
Right? But that's okay. And I always, again, I go back to the plane because we were also making jokes about helicopters back in the day. Each individual Linux distribution originally was generated by, whomever was just passionate about, and they were built for different things, some of the different distributions. And they were just a passionate group of people that had all kinds of different hardware. Oh my gosh. Because Linux can run on anything. You had to have the right drivers. You had to pay a certain fee. You had to do, and there was all kinds of things back in the day that everybody was worried about. And so instead you would just go online and you would just download. And if you go real far back, you would just get your floppy disks. Oh my goodness. But it usually had, at least for the commercial hardware that you go out to, whatever, big box store and buy hardware, usually you could find a Linux distribution that would run on that hardware. And then once we graduated from college, we took it with us. So we were building these things and then I don't want to go and use somebody else's operating system. I want to use the operating system that I was able to easily run on whatever hardware maybe our parents had discarded. The crossover was insane. And then we wanted to take that into our work life because it just made it easy. We already knew what we were doing.
I think you nailed it especially with the customizability, because that's not just for like personal preference, but it also gives you that flexibility to run it on basically anything. Like I think I found that if it has a screen, usually it can run some form of Linux,
exactly,
which makes it perfect for things like edge devices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I have to interrupt you real quick, Emily, because a lot of times there was no screen. Mm-hmm. And so that was it. We were all command line. And I think a lot of times we still are, right? Don't tell my friends who developed the UI. But my point is, even if you didn't have a screen, it was so easy and it was so cheap to get your web server set up, get your mail servers. Back in the day, again, it's a little bit more complicated now, but I really do think that's how it got its grounding and its footing. And it works.
Well, 100%. And, as a UI product manager, I am grievously wounded.
I'm so sorry.
But I will forgive you. But I think cheap also is a big part of it as well, because you have the control that comes with customizability. You don't have, a Microsoft or an Apple just deciding to change the OS and break your entire enterprise infrastructure. You have some control over what goes into it, and they tend to be, at least, if not cheaper, you have the option to fork and manage something yourself if it's really important to you. So if there's one thing Linux enthusiasts like to argue over, it's which distribution they're using. In the grand scheme of things, does the distribution matter at all?
Oh, you are jumping right into some of the longest battles.
Oh, yeah. It's not a podcast if you don't throw a couple grenades in there.
Right. Oh, my God. I am going to get mail after. I'm going to get pings after. Somebody on the Discord is going to come for me. It does matter. It does matter because, and I wasn't trying to go too deep into it, and I still won't, but each one of my large network of friends who have been directly involved in creating and maintaining many different type distributions 25 years ago and today do it for particular reasons. They all either naturally have a different interest. They come from different backgrounds. Some of them were very security minded from day one. So their Linux distribution was built to be secure. That doesn't mean it is very usable to the general public.
Oh, yeah.
If you use that particular distribution, you are going to avoid some of the complications of using different hardware, because there are now, and I'm thinking back to my friend Vincent, your series you just had, there are now all kinds of security vulnerabilities because of certain hardware, firmware, those layers, right? So some of the folks that built some of these distributions focus 100% on that. Some of these distributions focus much more on usability, how many different types of systems it can run on. So there's always like a give and take. So some want to be tiny edge cases. Oh my gosh, that's the hottest thing right now, right? Edge everything.
Oh yeah. So hot right now.
Now that comes with its own, because you have a 1 core, you have a 4 core, you have so many cores, so little cores on the edge. If it's in your toaster, it's only going to have half a core. No, I'm just So every distribution kind of has their own focus and why they've been built the way they've been built, what they decided to include. Now, there are only a few big distributions still, and there've only always been a few big ones. But to be clear, the sky's the limit in terms of Linux distributions.
Well, there are certainly a lot of opinions about operating systems and nuances to keep in mind. And I think we can all agree that it's better to argue a little and come to a consensus than to build a business without an IT plan at all.
Absolutely. I agree.
Scott shared a story with us about a project he worked on that was a smidge of a challenge to get organized.
So I was working for services at the time, and I was on a services engagement for a infrastructure modernization. They didn't have a dedicated IT operations staff, so the development team not only developed the product that they sold to their customers, but they also managed their infrastructure too. But they weren't from an infrastructure background. They were from a development background. And so some choices that they made were kind of causing issues as time wore on. They had 12 systems, and the way that they kind of added on capacity and other things is they were developing their product and they needed a new capability or they needed some more capacity. They would buy servers and they'd take delivery of the servers and then they'd install their operating system and then start doing their either software installation or, adding the software that they had written in-house onto that machine. And so over time, they had not only a variety of generations of hardware equipment, some of it was, 10, 12 years old, they also had a variety of operating systems on that equipment.
All right, we're going to go at this in pieces because there was a lot in that situation. Now, I could see your face, but our listeners can't. So, Jennifer, how did you react to hearing that there was no team in charge of infrastructure? And have you run into that scenario before?
So this entire interview is taking me back. I have definitely run into this. I was around when system administrators were just called sysadmins, and then suddenly there was something called DevOps.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a book, I'm not going to name, but y'all can go and look. I don't remember what year, don't quote me. And we all said, oh, okay, so we're going to be maintaining all of the software. All the users are going to come to us. We're going to also be responsible for the operating system management, but also all of this. And or we're going to have a lot of developers coming into our world that was just us over here keeping the architecture up, keeping the hosts running, and then others were using them again in that excitement of what are they doing with it? Can we, we're helping from afar. Oh my gosh. It was like a constant assisting in research. In my last life, I worked at a university. It was a research university. So we're doing all of this, but then there's suddenly the royal they has been putting on developers who were creating that software that, I mentioned the cancer research. I'm very proud of the work that I did there and is still continuing, by the way, on top of Red Hat products. But those folks were then being asked to help out in making decisions about the infrastructure and the operating system and what, and they didn't have that background. So yes, I have definitely experienced this very, gracefully. I merged into that world because, I got more experience with what they were then doing, the end users were doing. So that wasn't all a bad thing is what I'm saying. I can always look on the positive side of most things. However, the amount of operating systems, we talked about how easy it is to install, depending on your version, your distribution of Linux on any kind of hardware you want, how much money you can save, all of this. But the problem, there's always a downside. As much as I look on the bright side, there's always a downside. If it's running and it's running well, People aren't going to want to change it. Don't touch it. Nobody touch it, right? So they will leave the one and just keep adding and adding. And the folks don't know that you shouldn't do that, that it makes your life much harder in the future. It seems really easy right now to just tack on extra hardware, extra either major versions of the same operating system or different operating systems. Another piece of this that I think got lost along the way in the DevOps revolution, and it was a great revolution in certain ways, was that folks who are running different applications themselves, different apps, which we called programs back then.
Aww.
Different programs needed different distributions because whomever wrote the program had also been using a different distribution. And so everything kind of worked. They had all the libraries and drivers that they needed for fairly, in my world back then, it was fairly specialized. I keep finding myself in fairly specialized industries. It's interesting, but it's definitely helped me understand a lot of different use cases as time goes by. So yes, no, I have definitely been in this situation many times in many different industries.
Absolutely. No, I come from the startup land. So kind of same thing where it's just kind of the Wild West. Whatever someone figures out how to make work is what it's going to be.
And then, of course, we can never forget the security implications of not being able to update, of not knowing what is running on what, who can get to which server, which operating system version, who has access to log in to download. We're talking about, if it's a mixture of operating systems, we could be talking about proprietary or open source. So you might literally need a new license or whatever the thing is, right? There's a million different constraints that come with having tons of different hardware and different operating systems that folks just don't really realize while they're going along and adding more and more to their mix. And the management alone, I promise we're going to talk about Ansible later, but that does solve some of the problems. Okay, there is hope. Okay, there's always hope.
There are ways and means.
There are ways and means, and I have all the sympathy in the world and empathy for the program operators, the applications, the end users, the business owners, all these business units that I work with every day, that my team works with every day. Mm-hmm. They just need their app to work. They've got a business objective that they have to get done. So we make a lot of jokes in the back end, and I was talking about gaming, and it just sounds really fun and whatever, but what they're running on top of these various operating systems in many cases are literally the make and break for some of these companies, for some of these business units within the companies. So I tend to get glass half full and the positive, and I kind of have to laugh because I've been in the fire so many times. I've been in the situation where that one person leaves, that one person gets called away for personal reasons, professional reasons, something happens.
And goes on vacation.
Oh, they have the nerve to go on vacation sometimes, don't they, these people?
How dare they?
So they do. And that's when the bad thing happens. That's when the security breach happens. That's when I get chills just thinking about it. But when that happens, the scramble. So it ruins all of the time savings, all the cost savings, everything that you got over many, many years, 10, 12 years of building this is gone. All that because you can't update. You can't figure out how to even log in sometimes to that one. Let's go for another analogy.
You know I can't resist.
You and I love an analogy.
I was going to talk about, it's really easy to build your giant mismatched, water world.
Oh, I like that. I was just thinking houses, right? I know a lot of people that manage a lot of different houses now. And if you have 7 different houses and each one has their own keys, their own security system, their own waterworks, right? They're getting their water from all kinds of different places. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we could just extend this analogy. I literally just thought of this. We could just extend this analogy all the way out. If you have somebody that is your property manager and they're doing all that and that one person leaves,
Back to Scott. Their systems were, working with big ol' air quotes there. But for how long? New leadership at the company decided to look under the hood.
And so what had happened was the company had brought in a new CTO, and he looked at kind of their makeup and saw that there was a fair amount of risk, that they hadn't been getting things like security updates. They were running this much older software, in some cases over a decade old, that had not been updated. And he wanted to kind of, one, modernize their stuff so that we could get something that was more recent, but also he wanted to standardize. Because one of the problems is if you like kind of cobble this together and you have a whole bunch of different generations of things, you have to manage those different generations of things differently. They don't always come with the same software. So on this really, really old one, you have to install this software package to get the functionality that you want. And on a newer one, it may be provided by a different software package. And you have to know which one you're working on so you know what software you need to look for the capability that you're working on. So we went around kind of figuring out what was running on each of the systems. When it was built, we tested, moving components over to the new systems. And when there were problems, we would work with the development team to figure out, like, maybe this thing that does email needs to be re-architected a little bit because it was using older Python libraries that had been replaced with newer Python libraries. And that might change kind of the format of how they had to interact with it in their Python program, because Python doesn't always maintain backward compatibility with earlier versions. So it was a migration and testing and iterative improvement. And then once we kind of had all that knocked out, and it probably took about 2 months, they were up and going and happily running on their new set of brand new hardware on their standardized on Red Hat Enterprise Linux systems.
So it turns out most of these systems were running for years and years on a smattering of short-term support releases, not unlike our crazy mishmash Waterworld analogy from before. So let's talk a little bit more about why that's an issue.
Right. I was just laughing too. I kind of tiptoed into it on the last one. I love the Waterworld analogy. I'm just still kind of like, my mind is right there. But one of the things also, the Sun came out and now they're running on Red Hat Enterprise Linux systems. And I'm going to go to the positive and then we're going to backtrack into if only they had done this in the beginning, right?
Right. Hindsight's 2020.
And so the wonderful thing about the fact that they all decided to go to, and I am quite biased,
of course,
towards Red Hat Enterprise Linux, that's what I've been supporting and my team has been supporting now for 13 plus years, is that there are certifications, like other companies, all of our friends, all of our partners certify versions of their programs applications on different major and minor versions of RHEL. Because they didn't have that before, they couldn't do what he mentioned, which is go in and say, I need this library. I need this version of Python. I need My program, I definitely know runs on using this version of Python. Well, if they have 7 different versions of 20 different distributions, I'm just making up numbers now because why not, right? You just can't do that. You just can't go in and say, I know that my program, I'm confident that so then you're adding on all the time to do your own certification of your application on whichever distribution of Linux, because your users need to have confidence that it's going to work. And if that's your function within your company, is to help certify or verify that these things are actually able to run these applications that your company relies on, you'd have to then do it on this major and minor version, this other major and minor version, this other. So I haven't even gotten yet to the security concern.
Mm-hmm.
Just making sure it's running reliably how they expected, because it ran before. That's why we were on the same machine for 10 years.
Yeah.
And the same version for 10 years is because it was working. Why touch it? Why break it? Well,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. But eventually it's going to break.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons it might break is one of the hottest topics right now, right? You have to apply those security updates.
Mm-hmm.
The application has to apply security updates. The operating system has to apply security updates. The firmware has to have, you guys, this is not even a question anymore in our world.
Yeah. And the moment you're looking at the spaghetti and going, okay, which ones of these have the vulnerability that I need to patch? Slows you way, way down than if you can be like, oh, we have that, apply everywhere.
And we're back in our water world.
Exactly. So I think we touched a little bit on the security concerns there. Like there's vulnerabilities, trying to figure out where they need to be applied or what even might apply to you. Anything else that might come up there?
I have seen so many situations where an application team, a business unit, they're running their business critical applications. Someone realizes, oh no, we have to upgrade because Maybe the hardware did die. Okay, let's just go there. The RAM died. The hard drive died. Something in there isn't working anymore. They have to jump then to a new version of the hardware, of the software, of the firmware, of the operating system. If you don't have a consistency, nobody has then tested that. You're just throwing your users into a water world.
Swim.
Swim. Like, go ahead, figure out how to swim in warm salt water versus, okay, I'm going to stop. No, but it's not just about security. It's not just about, well, what if the hardware dies? There are so many reasons. I'm remembering back to times when we had to pick different file servers, right? I mean, it goes all the way back. Yes, there are times where, and I'm trying to hold off mentioning, but think of the largest file servers that you can think of. Everybody has one in their mind right now because every person that's interacted with any kind of enterprise environment has a different file server, right? When those things are also completely separated from each other, the drivers are separated, we're going all the way down into like how packets flow between these and what file system have they chosen. Like, there are so many deep compatibility issues that you could run into.
So I think when you get into that kind of situation where you've got a whole bunch of different operating systems or that kind of dependency web that we've been talking about, at that point, fixing all of that isn't just an issue for the IT team anymore.
I mentioned it a little bit already, but the business units, everybody has to come together to fix this problem because you just really don't know sometimes with these modern applications. They're so complicated. They interact in so many different ways with the operating system, the firmware, the file system, the networking hardware between. We haven't even gotten really very far into that. Troubleshooting all of that, certifying those applications from a business perspective is a nightmare if you have to do it across so many different hardware vendors, distribution, Linux distributions. It will involve a lot more people. And so again, you're saving time by adding willy-nilly hardware and versions as time goes on, as years go on, but it will bite you in the end. You will have to take a moment and bring all of the different groups together to come to some kind of common platform.
Yeah, I think the further away from standardized you get, the more people's problem it becomes. Like, it's harder for ProdSec to find vulnerabilities. It's harder for support to troubleshoot things. I think we've talked about some of that before, but at that point, it becomes a little bit of a team effort. So in the end, that project that Scott had a fairly smooth rollout after a couple of months, but upgrading to newer versions of an operating system isn't always an error-free experience. Scott explained how there can sometimes be updating or upgrading errors.
It's pretty common for software packages to have these little bits of scripting, these little bits of code that prepare the system for the software or clean up something from the software. But then there's a whole bunch of other weirdness that can happen. So let's say, for example, you're applying an update and all of a sudden your file system becomes full in the middle of the update. So as you're taking these new files out of the update archive and you're placing them in the file system, some of them were placed and some of them could not be placed because you ran out of disk space. And when you ran out of disk space, not only did it kill off your update process in terms of like updating the files, it also killed the process that was doing that update. So things like the scripting that might come about from that package may or may not have been executed, or some of it may have been executed and other of it got killed when this error happened on the system.
Bugs that come from upgrading operating systems aren't always super obvious, right? So, are these issues fun to debug?
Well, for someone like me, yes. But I hark back to, I don't know what it is about keeping this infrastructure running, but I'll be honest with you, I love it. I love finding that issue. I love, when you figure out what it is and then you actually fix it and everybody says, oh, wow, it's actually working now. Oh, it feels so good, doesn't it? Oh my goodness. Okay, maybe that's just me.
No, I get it from the problem solving aspect.
I have to put a positive spin on it. I have to. That's how I've survived this long in this industry. But joking aside, we don't have time for this. Emily, we have a business to run.
Exactly. And like, as fun as the puzzle might be for a customer or, someone waiting on this upgrade, I feel like it's like, bringing your groceries inside and the bag rips. And it's like, oh no, it was hard enough to get from point A to point B. And now there's all new issues to deal with.
So no, I don't consider these a good use of time to debug.
Fair.
We should do better things. I love that he brought up the file systems, though. This is the deep level that I wanted to go to. And I really love that Scott brought that up, that there are so many surprises when you get into all of the layers of modern operating systems and modern infrastructure.
Oh, yeah. It all looks really simple when you're just kind of using it from the surface layer. But there be dragons down below. So what could someone do to prepare properly before an update to avoid that kind of situation?
Document. I'm still assuming that we are talking about that 10, 12-year-old set of systems that, they've added a few more every year. They have so many different distributions, et cetera. The first thing, and nobody wants to do it, is you have to document everything that you have. Get a list and get all your hardware, because no matter what distribution that you decide to standardize on, and you will be standardizing, guys, you're going to have to know what you have already to try to stave off some of those dragons.
Exactly.
But no matter which one you pick, you have to then go through what are the pros and cons. Guys, which one are you going to use? There's a lot out there, right? We already talked about that. There's so many different distributions. They all exist for different reasons. So you're going to want to pick one. I'm going to keep going up. I've been doing this a long time.
Go for it. I imagine there's things like redundancies you can put in place. Like,
yes!
Do your backups.
Is your application highly available or not? Mm-hmm. That was one of my expertise when I was a TAM. There are additional packages you're going to want to pull in. Do you want to move to a containerized environment now or later? Mm-hmm. Because it's now or later. There's no... So I'm a little biased there too, but
there is no never.
There's no never. Are you going to containerize now? Are your applications ready for that? Have they already moved to a containerized mindset? I'm hoping by 2026 they have, but who knows, right? I'm not judging, folks. I've been around a long time. Have you met with your application folks? Can you meet with your application folks? Sometimes these layers are completely separated from each other.
Especially at big companies, like people don't always talk.
Right. And half of these problems are caused because of that. So document. Really go through every layer if you can. I went to it earlier because it's also one of my specialties for a while was various file system providers, and there's all kinds of different ways you can have your storage on the back end. Is it in the cloud? Is it local? You're on-prem? You're blah, blah, blah. There's all these considerations. Some group of people needs to sit down. If you've gone this long with this kind of hodgepodge, as the kids used to say 50 years ago, of operating systems, hardware, maybe half cloud, half on-prem, whatever you're doing, you're really going to have to sit down and document the heck out of all of this and start making some hard decisions. And where can you compromise? Somebody's going to have to compromise in some of this.
Exactly. You got to start Mod Podge in your hodgepodge.
I forgot about the Mod Podge. So somebody's going to have to make the hard decisions.
Those are some things you can do to prevent it. But if something has already gone wrong, grocery bag already split, if an update has you pulling your hair out, there are a few options you can take.
Yeah. So one decision is push forward, right? Finish the update, figure out, troubleshoot the problem, and continue on with the update to get to the other side. And the other one is roll back the update. Rolling back the update generally works. Again, when things get weird and nebulous on the machine because of some kind of failure or error, when you roll back, it may not roll back the way that one might expect. So that's a concern too. And that's one of the reasons why we're starting to see things like immutable operating system images. Bootsy creates a immutable operating system image. And then when you want to deploy a new image, or deploy an update, you actually create a new image and then you copy it to the machine and you boot into it. So everything baked inside the image is what you're running. And if there's a problem or an error, instead of having to roll back and, maybe not have the scripting quite right or know what happened or what didn't happen as part of that update process that you're running, with image-based updates, you can simply revert to the previous all-in-one image of your operating system.
So at some point you have to decide, is it easier to carry on to point B or go back to point A. So is there something in rolling back an upgrade and trying again? Does that usually yield a different result?
I cannot stress enough right off the bat how amazing boot C is. For those listening, we're going to get to it, Emily, I promise. But I just need everybody listening to go out there. And this is my bias and obviously Scott's bias. Thank you, Scott. Rel 10 includes boot C, and it lets you roll back and upgrade. And yes, it is exactly what it sounds like. All those times over, no matter what device, anything that you've had, everybody today has had a cell phone, has had a desktop, has a laptop, etc. And I'm assuming probably at least half of you have had an upgrade go wrong. Mm-hmm. Being able to roll back, it's just a command. There's already, it's immutable. I know we're about to talk about that, so I won't say that word again. I won't even define it yet, but we'll get it.
It's like a save point.
It's a save point. It is glorious. It is like what we've all been waiting for. I feel like we jumped a little bit from figuring out where you're going to go. And then we took Jennifer's very biased. Let's go to L10. Let's just go. Guys, let's just go, because you know what you get? You get what Scott just described. Oh, containers for the win, you guys.
In a perfect world now where you can roll back safely and be pretty sure that you get all the way back to point A that we were trying to get to, you'd have to do something in most cases in order to upgrade again and have it actually work, right?
Oh, exactly. So this is where we get back to my favorite part of the troubleshooting, right? Mm-hmm. Get in there, check those logs. What does the journal say? How did we get here? Was it us? And when I say us, I affectionately mean, Rel, or was it something with the application? Was it application specific library? I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? Did the file system fill up? Oh, goodness gracious. The amount of times the file system has filled up.
Oh, so many times.
The logs it doesn't make any sense. That's not what I would have expected to see, but it could be so many different things, right? But you have that freedom. You have that flexibility now. You can roll back, you can see what happened, and then you can try it again.
Yeah. And you're not doing it from the crater of the middle of the failed upgrade.
You don't have to reinstall the whole darn thing. Oh, my goodness.
Much better. So we do say that we simplify tech topics here, and we used a couple words that I want to make sure we define. So what is an image?
In my world, it is an operating system. It is the operating system, all the libraries and drivers and modules that you need to actually boot Rel.
You might say it's the whole picture.
It's the whole picture. It's the whole house. Let's see. How many other have we used this time? We've used cars, planes, trains, houses, water world.
Did we get planes, trains, and automobiles?
I did think I mentioned car. Yeah, I did automobiles for a second there. Yeah. But it's everything that it takes that you would think of that is like a house, and that you could live in. It's got the bed, it's got the ceiling, it's got the fans, it's got your air conditioning, it's got everything. But in an operating system world, it's your libraries and your modules and your firmware and everything else you could think of that is an operating system.
Yeah. Not a JPEG, not a PNG. It is an operating system plus.
It's not just one RPM. It's a whole bunch of RPM. Okay.
Exactly. So we also said immutable, which also has other meanings. So in this context, what does immutable mean?
Unchanging. It's not changing. It is fixed.
Pretty much what it says then.
Yep. That's it. Yeah. So, because the idea is, when I would go in and install in the past, I would download, I would put on a USB drive, I would pop it into my machine. I would install the operating system and immediately upgrade. And you could theoretically kind of call that little USB drive immutable, but I could get in there and mess with it. You could still get in there and mess with it. You recompile your kernel. We used to do that back in the day, guys. We do it a little bit still now. But now with this, the idea is you are creating an image that you are not going to, it is not changed.
Gotcha.
All the library, the versions, everything, you are setting that, and it's really for security reasons. There's a lot more that you can get into, and we might soon, for why that matters so much, that is unchanging, that is so much more secure.
No, that makes sense. It's like your paper _ final. This one.
No more work in progress.
Exactly. It feels great to successfully troubleshoot a problem that's been the bane of your existence. But sometimes you've got to just pull the nuclear option, raise everything to the ground, and start from a clean install. That lets you sidestep the potential upgrade artifacts that were causing problems. That could be a clean installation of the same version of the operating system that you know works, or it could be a clean installation of the newer version you were trying to get to. Either way, you're going to need to do what's called a lift and shift. You get the new system ready, lift your application and data from the old system, and shift it over to the new one. But as Scott shares with us, that option has its own drawbacks.
I worked on a development team for a while, and we would do updates every 6 months. And we'd actually do this, right? Where in 6 months, we'd stamp a new system and we'd move the application and all of its data over to the new system. And that way we would jettison all of our old artifacts that may have been left over on this older system that we were getting rid of. The hazard was, over that 6-month period that we were operating that production system, something would happen. A timeout would happen on web services, something. And we'd go into the configuration file and tweak the timeout to be a longer time. Or the logs filled up. So we went over and changed the log rotate configuration to rotate them more frequently or compress them or something like that. And our first couple of times of lifting and shifting all to a new system, we had forgotten about all those changes. And so, in a couple months, we had the same log problem again, or we had the same timeout of web services problem again, because we had forgotten to remake those changes. So we started to kind of build that into our deployment methodology.
So the clean slate has its advantages and its opportunities for whoopsies without proper preparation. Are there any other configuration options to look out for?
I cannot help but bring up Ansible again, Emily. I just can't help it.
I'm never going to stop you.
And we are going to talk about this so much more in the future. And there are lots of different ways that you can avoid this, what he just described, right? Where you deploy something at 1 6-month point, and then in 6 months, you're rolling out a new like a new minor version, a new major version of your operating system, and you've lost whatever those configuration changes are in between, right? So in the meantime, you might have added more storage, different storage. So you asked me other configuration options. Many times folks would decide that in the world that I was working in a few years ago, oh my gosh, you guys, the network latency was the most important thing. And they would swap out network cards like it was candy. There are situations where you're working for a business that latency is life. And so you might have switched out your network cards. And in that 6 months, if you go and you redeploy and you haven't taken that into consideration and all the different tuning and tweaking you might have done for your network layer, you lose all that. Ooh, now you're probably going to figure that out real quick. Thank goodness. Hopefully, because the business objectives again are tied right into that latency. So, but things like that, you changed your hardware, you changed your storage, your networking. There's so many different options that could change in that 6 months. But man, I want to live in that world where you get to redeploy.
Yeah, 6 months is light speed.
Goodness gracious, Scott. Nice.
Not to, USify everything, but like doing taxes every year. Like, I don't remember what I did a year ago.
No, exactly. Well, thank goodness you documented it, right?
Exactly. If you can carry some of that configuration with you, you can get both the clean slate and enough of that metadata that you don't mess yourself up. We've just been scratching the surface on this episode, and I know we have a ton more to say this season. And there's so much more to keep track of than we can get to in one episode. So if you're trying to do this upgrade as a side project, like the developer team in Scott's first story, something is going to get missed.
So we have a saying on my team, when everyone owns something, no one owns something. And so that's what you want to avoid, right? So whether you need 5 people dedicated to infrastructure or 1, there's no good answer to that. It's going to be determined by how complex your environment is. Can you spare 5 people? Like, there's the headcount costs of allocating the people to this function. But I think that IT departments are often overlooked in terms of investment and management, because it turns out that if they're doing their job really, really well, no one notices, right? Because there's no outage, there's no problems. Things just work. And that's because of a lot of effort on their part, right? Of maintaining updates, working with the other teams like the development team to make sure that there's testing and promotion from development environments to maybe QA environments, to then production environments. So that by the time it's in front of your executives and customers, it's already been through some rigorous testing so that it doesn't just fall over. So how many should I have? It depends. Like, I can't answer that for you. But I think that somebody should own the infrastructure that you work on, and someone should be responsible for it as part of their job, because if no one has that as part of their job, it doesn't get done.
Exactly. And sometimes you don't even know it needs to get done until it is too late. So we covered a lot today. So I'm going to do a little recap together to talk about some of the kind of major themes that we went through. We talked about standardization, and the more standard your infrastructure it is, the easier typically it is to maintain and upgrade and protect. We talked a bit about compatibility. Again, the cleaner a setup that you have, the less you'll have to troubleshoot because you have less variables to control. We talked a little bit about upgrading woes, what can go wrong, what you can do about it, and a little bit about what you can prevent that, and some options for if it's too late and everything has already gone wrong. So those are kind of the highlights of the infrastructure world for this episode. You've heard a lot of our thoughts. Now, if you're listening, it is time to add yours to the conversation as well. Hit us up on social media at Red Hat and use the hashtag #CompilerPodcast. And that will do it for this episode of Compiler.
This episode was written by Johan Philippine, and a big thank you to our guest, Scott McBrien.
Compiler is produced by the team at Red Hat with technical support from Molly Brock.
If you liked today's episode, don't keep it to yourself. Follow the show, rate the show, leave a review, or share it with someone you know.
And we'll see you next time.